Greetings, and welcome to A Year of Movies, a Planet Geek production. For this project, we are using the Ivan Walters reference book of 365 films to watch on the day they happened. Each day, we watch a movie associated with the date we are watching it on. And as it is January 22nd, we are watching Zulu from 1964, directed by Cy Enfield and starring Stanley Baker. So, to begin with, I've known about this movie for quite a while. I've known it's one of the first introduction to the theatrical universe of one Michael Caine. And again, it is a war-based film around the like later half of the 1800s. In I believe 1879 is when this particular movie takes place during the British Zulu Wars that went on at the time. Now, not knowing much about that point of British history, I did know about the existence of this movie and its and the basic storyline that surrounded the story. So, to begin with, not only does this movie star Stanley Baker, it also stars Jack Hawkins, Ulla Jacobson, James Booth, Nigel Green, and, according to the opening credits, introducing Michael Caine. So this is your typical sort of not quite anti-war sort of film. We do get to see a lot of British culture being pushed forward in this, with the superiors of the men involved in this situation dealing at this time in history where the British are trying to claim certain lands where things don't go quite as planned. The movie opens up, as we learn from the very opening of the movie, so like 2 minutes into a 2 hour 19 minutes, we actually get a telegram being sent back to home base about inciting the events that take place on this date of January 22nd, 1879. So apparently the British are defeated at this particular date, where the Zulu tribe closes in on our encampment of Rorke's Drift. It's a outpost that has an absence of a commanding officer. So an engineering officer, Lieutenant Chard, who is Stanley Baker, takes on the role as commander. This movie deals with a lot of proper procedure of the British Army dealing in the situation that they find themselves in. We have a lot of gentlemen that are forced out of technically sickbed to defend this outpost against the Zulu tribes that are in giant numbers that are staggering in comparison to the small amount of people that they have. Now, it was a really cool, several sequences of military strategy being put on by both sides. You see one learning from the other, which is kind of the way that it really should go when you're dealing with an enemy that you're not 100% sure of. You test the waters, you come back, you push a little further, find out what the reaction is, and the vice versa with the other ones. When your enemies come at you, you see what they do and whatnot. So So it's got a bunch of spectacular action sequences. There is a lot of really quite graphic for the day deaths and all that sort of thing. We see a lot of people being impaled upon items, either spears from the Zulus or the British bayonets on the end of the rifles. We do see a lot of distance kills with guns, both for the British side and the Zulu tribe, who have, in their prior conquest, picked up weapons from the fallen enemies that they've scavenged. But we do have a lot of really close-up, cool well placed like camera angles and blocking to show people getting killed, or we actually have like well placed like padding on the back of an actor while another stabs a spear into his back and whatnot. And we do have a lot of, I would consider, Hammer-esque blood with a blood paint, a blood red paint sort of thing that trickles out of mouths when people get stabbed in backs or whatnot, or appear on the edge of pulled out sharp weapons. There's some really spectacular fire stunts that go on. Again, knowing when the era of this movie was done, a lot of the stuff looked extremely practical and well placed. If the actors were out of danger, the camera work was fantastic to show that they were beautifully set up to show that they were in danger. But probably one way or the other, there was pretty much kind of, just from, I know the time when movies like this were done, the stunts were spectacular. And they still are. They look fantastic. But again, they were probably a little more dodgy than they probably would be in a modern day version of this, which let's hope that they don't get around to it. But again, it's not a movie that I would probably revisit. I'm glad I saw it. It's a piece of cinematic history dealing with history itself. And it's was a surprise to see how, I don't want to say how well done it is as a dismissal to what I thought the movie was, because again, it's a well-known movie. People know about this movie. So it's not like it was like I'm finding a hidden gem or something like that. But again, a very interesting cast, very well structured story. Like I said, really great fight sequences and stunts. And I'm glad I got to see this movie. I mean, again, other than this list, I probably would have been able to go the rest of my life without seeing this movie. But now that I did, I'm actually glad I did. But now that I think about it, the missing leg from the tiger sequence in Monty Python's The Meaning of Life is a little slightly funnier than I'd originally conceived. And as it is January 23rd, we are watching The Shootist from 1976, directed by Don Siegel and starring John Wayne. So to start off, this is my actually first time fully watching a full John Wayne film. Now, in the past, I have seen portions of his movies. I've seen, obviously, clips of all sorts. And again, I probably might have seen a good portion of movies on like cable television growing up as a kid, but not really buying into that version of what a Western film is. Now, while I do enjoy Westerns to begin with, John Wayne didn't really seem to be my cup of tea when it came to Western movies. Not that I hold that against him, it's just my preferences. So this, being my first full John Wayne movie and also his last performance, made for kind of an interesting first experience with this gentleman. So that being said, this movie not only stars John Wayne, but also stars Lauren Bacall, Ron Howard, James Stewart, Richard Brooke, Harry Morgan, and John Carradine. So we are dealing with a story at a man who, to begin with, we are given a bunch of background to this character that we are going to be introduced to. We have a lot of actual archival footage of previous Westerns with John Wayne, obviously, that lead to the beginning of this particular movie. It also is kind of weird to have a Arrested Development voiceover by Ron Howard, as his voice gives us the opening narration to this film. And what I found out afterwards is the character that he plays of B.J. Brooks have the footage to link him to other characters. This is the first time that the characters actually appeared on screen, just fleshing out the character by giving the backstory of seeing young John Wayne footage of being a Western hero, or icon, I guess is better to put. Now, as I said at the beginning, it's kind of a weird thing for me to be seeing this gentleman's last performance as my first performance for seeing him. And also, like I said, I have seen portions of his other movies, and obviously clips are kind of impossible to ignore when you're talking about any sort of history of Hollywood. John Wayne's name always comes up. It's interesting to see this pretty much stereotypical feel of what John Wayne acts like, and it's what this. Now, he doesn't have the full drawn-out Southern drawl that a lot of people put into impressions of John Wayne. The gentleman is definitely in the later part of his life to begin with, which technically in real life he was, because this movie ends up kind of paralleling his actual life to begin with. Get a fabulous performance by Lauren Bacall. Always fantastic to see Lauren Bacall on the screen. Harry Morgan, huge MASH fan, so seeing a look of Harry Morgan, who always seems to have looked old before coming to even MASH. Scatman Crothers, fantastic in his cameo, and of course we're dealing with a older Ron Howard to begin with, which is kind of cool to see. And my favorite cameo is John Carradine, who as soon as the camera shows his business, you're like, oh yeah, of course you got John Carradine as your Undertaker. It's like I said, it's weird to me to have watched this movie. I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's relatively short to begin with, only like an hour and 40 minutes long. And as this movie documents the final week of his life in actual real time, at about 18 minutes in the film, we are given the date of January 23rd, 1901. So, while I don't have any other John Wayne movies to compare this to, I did quite enjoy this movie. Like I said, I do like a Western to begin with. It was interesting to see more, as I said previously, Hammer-style blood, more of a paint red blood being used for a lot of the effects to show up on camera. But, I mean, it's a different kind of Western that I'm used to, that's all. It also did actually receive an Academy Award nomination for Best Set Decoration. And as it is January 24th, we will be talking about Love Actually from 2003, directed by Richard Curtis and starring Alan Rickman. Now, to begin with, this is one of those movies that's on everyone's favorites lists of some sort. This is definitely one of those top Christmas movies. I personally am a fan of a ensemble cast, especially when you have a collected ensemble cast like this one. I will admit that this is definitely not a movie in my regular rotation. I have seen it before a couple of times as well, but I think what I'm about to watch has been the first time I've watched this movie in quite a few years. That being said, this movie also stars Alan Rickman, Emma Thomas, Hugh Grant, Keira Knightley, Colin Firth, Lucia Moniz, Liam Neeson, Thomas Stagster, Bill Knightley, and Gregor Fisher. So as this is a Christmas-themed movie, it is basically an ensemble cast that has their lives that start at one point several weeks, about 5 weeks before Christmas, and the movie runs through as storylines overlap. You get revealed to different relationships between different characters throughout the whole entire film. And again, we have very charming British actors. We have very alluring British actresses. Everyone on top of their game. So we go through a lot of comedic, a lot of heartfelt, a lot of relationship building, a lot of relationship breaking down. And it's an entertaining ride. You know what? I can't really point out one particular person as not doing a fantastic job. In each of the stories, everyone comes to the forefront. And each of these characters pretty much has a really cool through line that you can follow. We focus in on Liam Neeson as a widower and how he is dealing with his stepson. Uh, Again, we have Alan Rickman teaming up with Emma Thomas, who I completely forgot was the younger sister of the newly inducted Prime Minister of Hugh Grant. We have a terrifically hilarious aging rocker of Bill Nighy doing a Christmas version of one of his classic hits that runs throughout this whole entire thing, which is just a treat to watch every once in a while. It's just a great ensemble of all these characters coming together. We start off at one point, we all culminate in one location. We start off in one location and actually end up culminating in another, which is kind of a fun way to do it. And again, we count down to Christmas. The majority of the story basically ends at Christmas. That being said, the epilogue of this actual movie takes place on January 24th. 2004 at just over 2 hours and 6 minutes into a 2 hour and 16-minute movie. And as it is the 25th of January, we are going to be watching Anne of the Thousand Days from 1969, directed by Charles Jarrott and starring Richard Burton. So to begin with, I know history. What little history I do know about this story is pretty much all that I know. I am not aware of this movie to begin with. This is a first watch for me, and that being said, let's get into it. So as I stated, this movie stars Richard Burton. It also stars Genevieve Bujold, Anthony Quayle, Irene Papas, John Colicos, Michael Hordern, and Kathleen Blake. So this is a big budget epic drama, huge costume sort of deal, very theatrical. You definitely, put it bluntly, Richard Burton does his best Richard Burton as he throws the English language into the era that this movie is set and projecting every single one of his lines to the people in the back of the theater. Even though this is a movie, we are dealing with beautiful visualizations from, like I said, costuming and set design. We have some great dramatic acting in this era of the 1500s, where the movie actually takes place during the reign of Henry VIII, who is currently in the midst of being unsatisfied with the relationship that he currently has with his current queen, which is Catherine of Aragon. As well as his mistress, Mary Boleyn, when he is first introduced to the what will become future Queen Anne Boleyn, the younger sister of Mary. Now, this pulls from historical fact. Obviously, we're going to sensationalize for dramatic purposes, but we do run through the course of what happens through the courtship and the relationship and the fathering of a child and the marriage of the two and making her the new Queen of England and then falling for someone else and then having to concoct an excuse to get rid of the Queen and so forth and so. There's not much more to it than that. I mean, it is a fascinating movie to watch. The colors are just so vibrant. The costumes are just so spectacular. It is literally, you're watching like a theatrical performance. The amount of detail that goes into the look of this movie, as if you were watching a stage play. But again, you have the epicness of this being a movie from the 60s. Richard Burton is just so fantastic to watch. Upon the discovery of Anne Boleyn being pregnant, her first child with Henry, they decide to get married. And while it's not specifically spoken of in the actual movie, the actual date, we are aware that during history, on January 25th, 1533 is when the two of them wed. And that is revealed at 131 minutes into a 2 hours and 20-minute long movie. When it comes to costume dramas, I'm a fan of those as well. I'm a fan of all sorts of types of movies, but there are certain ones that I really, really enjoy. And costume dramas, when done to this caliber, are very enjoyable to watch. When the detail goes into trying to teleport you back to the day of, instead of without showing the limitations of what you have of the era that the movie is being shot in, is just spectacular, and that very much shines with almost every single corner of this movie. As one would expect from a movie of this caliber, it got quite a lot of recognition from the Academy Awards, winning Best Costume Design. However, it was also nominated for Best Actor in a Leading Role for Richard Burton, Best Actress in a Leading Role for Genevieve Bujold, Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Anthony Quayle, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Original Score, Best Picture, Best Sound, and Best Adapted Screenplay. And as it is January 26th, we're going to be watching Khartoum from 1966, directed by Basil Dearden and Elliot Ellefson, and starring Charlton Heston. So to begin with, I, like Zulu, am basically kind of aware of these happenings, but not knowing any of the great details, which we get quite a bit according to history from this particular movie. As it is, I was unaware of this movie actually happening, actually existing, so this is basically a first watch for me. So, as I just stated, it does star Charlton Heston as well as Laurence Olivier, Ralph Richardson, Richard Johnson, Alexander Knox, Nigel Green, and Michael Hordern. As I've stated, this is a movie that is the information I do not have possession of. Again, what I watched was a spectacular movie. One of the great things is starting the movie, it starts off with an overture, which is something that I'm aware that movies at the time did do. They had an overture, they had an intermission, which also this does have. But it's kind of neat to just like sit there and like watch this movie, and all of a sudden just music playing, nothing happened, just the words overture on the screen, which was kind of interesting to see for like 4 minutes, and then the actual credits start, and then we can go into the actual movie. We start off with a epic battle sequence between two armies that is fascinating to watch. It's overwhelming, the amount of people involved in this. There is a cast of like hundreds and hundreds of extras. Like closest thing we've seen so far was Zulu from a little while ago, but that was like maybe 200 extras at one point. This one is like a sea of people. The other thing that is a little unsettling about this is a lot of those people are on horseback, and as a battle ensues between the two armies, knowing how movies were done at the time, it is very like unsettling to see a lot of horses being dropped to the ground. I did some research after watching the movie quickly. Turns out when the movie was made, they were announcing there was no horses were harmed. Fortunately, through the passage of time, other stories have come forward that quite a few of the livestock did not survive the filming of this movie. Then we hit the second big, oh my god, clutch my pearls sort of moment of the movie, when we're introduced to the main bad guy, technically, of the movie is the Mahdi, who is played by Laurence Olivier in very dramatic blackface. Now, we're not talking minstrel blackface, but it is definitely on the side of, hey, maybe we could have gotten a different actor to portray this historical person. On the juxtaposition, there is Charles Gordon, who is portrayed by Charlton Heston, as a once the British-led Egyptian army is defeated by Mahdi and his armies. They send in Charles Gordon to see what he can do about the righting of the wrongs in that area. Things happen. We get some fantastic acting. We get Gordon's character. It seems to be his reputation. His reputation seems to precede him wherever he goes, as he has a history of being a great leader of men and leading people to do things that they weren't possible to do and without his leadership. So as he progresses towards the area where the Mahdi is, he sets himself up in the city of Khartoum, where he amasses a band of people to fight the forces of the Mahdi. Again, we're dealing with a lot of great acting. I mean, when you have a Charlton Heston and a Laurence Olivier, you're going to get fantastic acting from everyone around, because everyone just raises their A game in that sort of thing, which is parkour for these type of movies back in the day of the mid 60s. Charlton Heston has this great array of spectacular outfits that he changes into just to make a statement every single time he shows up on a new occasion. It's just a wonderment to watch. Now, as we know from history, on January 26th, 1885, the Mahdi's army actually attacks Khartoum, and Gordon himself is killed. And this takes place just under 2 hours into a 2-hour and 8-minute film. Now, it did get recognition from the Academy Awards, but it only got a nomination of Best Original Screenplay. And as it is the 27th of January, we are going to be watching Driving Miss Daisy from 1989, directed by Bruce Beresford and starring Jessica Tandy. So to begin with, this is a movie that I have seen not a lot of times, but it definitely is one that I have seen at least a handful of times. It's a very warm, endearing movie, and it basically came out at a time of my awareness of being more wanting to explore what movies were and are. It hit me in my late teens when I really had more availability to start seeing movies. And this was one of the ones that really struck a nerve because of its impact at the time that it was released and all of the accolades this movie received. Like I mentioned, this movie does star Jessica Tandy, as well as Morgan Freeman, Dan Aykroyd, Esther Rowley, and Patti LuPone. So this is just, at its base, a very charming movie to watch, where we deal with a woman coming with terms of her age and having her life turned upside down, her son refusing her the ability to drive upon her own, hires on a gentleman to take care of that process. They're a little standoffish at the beginning. Well, at least she is at the beginning. They have a pretty much of a really good butting of heads sort of relationship. But eventually things start to turn as the movie starts off in the 40s and progresses over 25 years. We get to watch this relationship become what it is. We witness the changing of a woman's ideals and her world around her, as it also does a huge change between the 25 years that take over this movie. Just the look of the movie changes, which is fantastic, outside of the house that she lives in, mind you. The changing of the vehicles and whatnot, just showing the progression of the world outside of her little world. Jessica Tandy and Morgan Freeman work fabulously together, which, I mean, understandable. We've got Morgan Freeman and Jessica Tandy. I mean, you can't go wrong with this. Surprising dramatic turn role for Dan Aykroyd early in his dramatic, quote-unquote, career. And he puts on a fantastic job. The makeup department does a wonderful job aging our actors 25 years throughout this whole entire thing. The Dan Aykroyd makeup that is really spectacular. Not only does his face change, but his hairline as well is just so beautifully dealt with. And again, It's a great movie to witness. So the date relative in this movie comes at of an hour and 39 minutes. The reveal of the date comes at 1 hour and 18 minutes into the film, where Jessica Tandy's character of Miss Daisy is in attendance. Technically, so is Hoke, which is Morgan Freeman's character, but that goes into a little more deeper in the storyline to place out. But yes, so according to history, the speech that Martin Luther King holds, Miss Daisy is present for, actually happens on January 27th, 1964. So, like I said, at the time the movie came out, it got a lot of praise from the awards. Mainly, it got the Academy Award for Best Picture and Best Actress for Jessica Tandy, as well as Best Makeup and Best Adapted Screenplay. The movie also went on to get other nominations, Academy Award nominations, such as Best Actor for Morgan Freeman, Best Supporting Actor for Dan Aykroyd, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, and Best Film Editing. And as it is January 28th, we will be watching Argo from 2012, directed and starring Ben Affleck. So I'm well aware of the situation that revolves around the story of this movie, both reality, the historical events, and the actual filming events. I am aware that there is, for dramatic purposes, a little bit of the story is altered to tell the more dramatic, action-packed version that we see in this movie than what actually did happen. Not to say it wasn't dramatic, because it definitely was. I mean, it captured, like, the nation of the United States in a grip for, like, the extended time that this event was happening. But that being said, this unfortunately is my very first time seeing this movie, and I'm sorry to say that it is my first time, because this was quite a spectacular movie to watch. Like I already stated, it stars Ben Affleck, but it also has Bryan Cranston, Alan Arkin, John Goodman, Victor Garber, Kyle Chandler, and Bob Gooden, as well as a myriad of other characters, actors that are spectacular throughout this whole entire movie. This movie is jam-packed with great character actors from the 2010s that just shine throughout this whole entire movie. So in November of 1979, so a little bit of a brief history lesson. In November of 1979, Israeli militants stormed the American embassy in Tehran, and during which a handful of 6 American employees escape and take up refuge at the Canadian embassy. And that spurs the CIA into getting this whole entire rescue mission of some sorts. So this movie deals with the campaign to do that. Ben Affleck is basically the man to head his own story, to be able to create this believable applause to the creation of making a real-life movie that is going to be shot in Iran, like a sci-fi movie. He, with the help of a special effects makeup artist played by John Goodman, and Alan Arkin, a director, come together with creating the vestige of this movie being made, where they're in a scouting trip over in Iran to scout out different locations, because in the late 70s, sci-fi is the thing. The movie has a brief moment of whimsy when we have this whole entire Alan Arkin, John Goodman dynamic happening back and forth as they work to get this fake studio and movie plans started and whatnot. But once Ben Affleck sets ground, the dramatic tension just skyrockets through the roof, and we deal with a fantastic display of acting. Everyone from the 6 members of the escapees, Victor Garber as the Canadian ambassador of Ken Taylor. We have back home Ben Affleck's boss of Bryan Cranston, trying to back him up, even though the CIA at one point shuts down the process, and still, it just fantastic drama all around. It beautifully acted. The recreation and feel of the late 70s is so prominent in this. It uses a lot of archival footage. Of course, it's a lot of news footage of credited anchor people at the time just up on the screen telling what we hear. Speeches from Jimmy Carter because it's during his presidency that this is happening, and it's just fantastic to see the archival footage that they then intersplice their own footage in, but then create their own like altered footage to make it look like it's archival footage. It's just fantastically done. It's just a treat to witness, but to be part of this movie and wrapped up in this dramatic story is just so good. So at just an hour and 22 minutes into a 2-hour movie, the actual band of escapees arrives at the airport on January 28th, 1980. And that's where we get our date from this, only because it is stated in history, the day that they actually left. Like I said, I'm sorry that this is my first viewing of it, because it was a really spectacularly not only acted but like produced film to begin with. And the Academy Awards agree in part with bestowing the Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay plus Best Film Editing Awards, and also gave a nomination to Best Supporting Actor for Alan Arkin, and Best Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Original Score. All right, so that being said, we're going to wrap up this particular episode and look off into the future for the next episode we're going to be watching tomorrow. And for January 29th, we're going to be watching The Great Raid from 2005. So until next time, go see a movie. This has been A Year of Movies, a Planet Geek production. Please be sure to subscribe, download, comment, share, rate, and review. Once again, another thanks to Ivan Walters for his book, A Year of Movies, 365 Films to Watch on the Day They Happened. Look for it online or at your local bookstore. Follow Planet Geek Productions on all of our social media. Through Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, and Letterboxd, search for Planet Geek Productions. On X, former Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, search for Planet Geek Pod. You can also reach out to us through email at planetgeekpod@gmail.com. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, go see a movie.